stupid Microsoft Teams. Um, yeah, hold on. Yeah, I'm gonna get my other connection going here.
Can you hear me, David?
You bet, buddy. I can hear you. Yeah.
All right, I hear you now.
All right. I've had an interesting morning. How's your day going?
Uh, Fair to middling. I mean, I've accomplished about 10% of what was on my list to do today. So, you know, par for the course. So,
Yeah, I'm still kind of reeling from, that I'm getting back into doing all this CG and game development stuff again. I really what committed, I was just like, when I saw what was going on, like the way the industry was, it's like my best friend that was in CG work was my CG supervisor, Garmin or whatever, and I mean, it's just it's killing him, It's like um, the movie, the special effects and the CG stuff, it's killing the Chinese people there. It's just like horrible exploitation. I was like, I'm giving this up. I'm not gonna do it again. No, I'm gonna go back home and learn how to grow plants like Mom said she wanted me to.
well, I have and I wouldn't call him a friend. I'd call him more of a guy I know online. He used to work for the company that the the VR camera that I have. He worked for Jaunt, and I actually bought. He owned one of the cameras, and I bought it from him. And he's been helpful, but he was here in Atlanta for a while. But he works in special effects. I mean, he's like a data wrangler. But long and short of it, it's like the with all the union strikes and stuff like that, it was like the special effects workers were trying to get in on the union talk negotiations because it was just it's just and we see it everywhere. People they want to buy something. And it's like, oh, there's this. In other words, they want to look at a finished product and say, oh, this is 30 seconds long and we want to spend X dollars for it. Not taking into account that it may have, 30 hours in it or 500 hours in it. And, the irony is that most of the people that are in positions to make the decisions or trying to do all this stuff don't really produce anything themselves. They sit back and are just in charge and go, oh, we're paying too much for this. We need to cut our costs. And I go, well, what have you done man-hour-wise to really do anything?
Dude, yeah, like maybe, uh, yeah, special effects. It's a sweatshop business. Anything, anybody that is it's like you got location stuff where your guys are walking around on the Star Trek Fleet Command deck or whatever like that, and then all that stuff of the spaceships flying around outside there, Battlestar Galactica stuff. Man, they don't want to do that anywhere in the West. They want to put it in a Thailand sweatshop and have people get paid nothing to do it, and that is it's like if a CEO of companies that can go into California and say, look, you're paying six figures for all these guys here, right? I can I'll give somebody in Beijing that I brought from Gansu province $1,000 a month, right? Uh, uh, and you can fire all these guys, and you know, they need to get, they need to, you know, we're helping them because you know, they're not in a viable line of work, and also we don't respect them because they're people that come around looking for wages. Those are slaves, right? They're just maggots. You know, people like me, a CEO of a company, right? I'm looking at this whole thing globally, right? And I'm like, how can I beat, you know, Metro Goldwyn Mayer with my next Hollywood blockbuster? Well, if I can, you know, hey, I got what, 8 6-figure people, you know, I can drop $2 million off the price tag, right?
Right.
And get it done in China. I'm valuable, right? So I should get, for, you know, if I fire 8 people, I should at least get $1 million for the benefit that I've done for this company. And you know, this is the thing across the board. The people that get it, like Julian Allen, the guy that was I was working side by side with him when he was a Mac support guy in the lab, you know, and he just saw, you know, he understood the people that do stuff, people that rent themselves out, right, for some salary, hourly wage or whatever. You don't want to be in that group, right? You need to be in the in the group where you're just like off the, you know, off the charts, and in terms of salary, and where you're in a position to, you know, be independently wealthy, own land and property and stuff like that. And you don't even, ultimately, you don't want to even answer the phone and talk to people that are, you know, slaves that go around and do work and produce stuff. They're, you know, they're misguided. And this is like, it's very old, and what, 400 BC, Aristotle and Aristotle's Politics, he wrote about this. It's like their world becomes so far removed, right? And their interests so far removed, you know, that their interests can run counter to the general population, right? They could drive the country into the ground, and then, you know, they just fly out on a jet and go live, you know, in Abu Dhabi or whatever like that. They're billionaires, you know. They're totally disconnected from maggots that work. But yeah, there's like there's a new edition of Rosa Luxemburg, and the you know, like in the invasion of Poland or whatever, if you go into the first books, there's like a 41 volume proceedings of the Nuremberg trials, right? And they have in the first couple of volumes that they were like, anybody in Poland that can read, kill them. Right? But there was a new edition of Rosa Luxemburg, and she was writing when the Russian Revolution happened about 1917, and the precursors to the Nazis or whatever were called the free companies. Like when the World War I disintegration happened or whatever, and they're just like these. They almost became like paramilitaries, right? And they had been, you know, their whole understanding of the world is war and strength and you know, conquest and conquering the enemy or whatever like that. And that is ultimately what they were desperate to get going again, and that there were some people in Russia that were the same way. Kerensky, you know, was I think he's the guy that he wanted to keep the war going, because that's, you know, how the money system worked. You know, the producing the arms, and, you know, you got to go into this war effort, and everybody's got to, and you cull the population. You know, all the people that you have to feed, well, they're dead. You know, So so you do it until you can't get oil to run the tanks anymore, and then it dwindles off until you can start it up again. You build back up enough, and the population builds back up again, and you can get everybody going again, and it starts in a cycle. It's like boom and bust, with these massive die-offs of people, right? And Rosa Luxemburg, they got a lot of her stuff was never translated from German, but she was killed by the Free Companies, the Freikorps, in 1919 for being anti-war, and she was called. She's completely rejected and threatened. Even Stalin was like, he was like, we're just gonna have a fair, we're just gonna have like a socialism in one country, right? And her position in Germany was well, okay, if you do that, what's going to happen is your Russia itself, this big huge territory, all the different groups or whatever, you're essentially internalizing an imperial role to bring this whole thing, keep it together in cohesion, right? If you say we're just going to do this in one country, and yet you still are in a fundamentally imperial role where you're consolidating your control and power within one big region on the world, and everybody else in the world keeps on going with the wars and the find the weakest country and destroy that country and then get its resources or whatever and fight with each other. If everybody else keeps going that, your revolution is going to fail ultimately, right? There's not going to be socialism anywhere, because these things, the imbalance, the imperial imbalance, is that, well, we do this to amass wealth instead of activity happening for reciprocity like it does in nature, where you poop on the ground and that's nasty, but when it gets on the ground, there's all these microorganisms and it's good, right? So it's like you're feeding those microorganisms and they're part of this big cycle. Whereas with human civilization, we've created this imaginary world or whatever, and this idea of, well, I have all this wealth. People don't really have anything. It's all their mind. And they only have it because the people go along with that. And band together. And this was the thing. Like there's some Native American that was like scoffing at the whole idea that no, you can't just take our land, And the guy's like, well, yeah, you sold it to us, and the guy's like, can't sell the ground out from under somebody's feet, Well, if somebody goes along with us, we can. Blam, kill him, right? Millions of people, and this is like, if you think about it, it's really just awful that people are like, they have this idea of wealth and of amassing wealth, and they get very vigorously active to go and quote unquote amass wealth. And so Rosa Luxemburg and later Trotsky, they said they went against Stalin. They were like, it's like if you look at it, it's like just common sense. And this is one of the reasons why I don't like the left right, because the people that are operating imperial states, they're like, if it's not imperialism, then you're on the left. But then all the left were like, no, what we got going on here is good. So you're not on the left. You're bad, So they say, well, Rosa Luxemburg was on the extreme left, and this terminology, it's kind of like it's a loaded, really. There's some connections to the expansion of the English language, for example, or in general, the whole academic system post-Renaissance began to adopt a lot of Latin words. You had to, if you were going to, so what on this thing of left and right, in the Roman military system, the left hand, how do you say left? Well, that's sinister, right? And it has a very evil connotation, right, linguistically. And right, is the killing hand. So in the Roman, I guess you call it the phalanx or whatever like that, you cannot be left-handed. That's death, right? So the left, if you say left, it's like death, right? It's like baggage that this terminology carries. It doesn't matter if you're just talking about common sense, right? If the whole world is stealing everything and killing everybody, and that's how they, just take a quick look at and compare the Chinese idea about population growth. In Europe, Malthus, he's like some kind of priest. He's like, oh look, the agricultural production growth curve is linear, and population growth is exponential. So therefore, yeah, ultimately, poor people are going to have to all die off, and it's a normal thing for them all to starve. Does it because the growth curve is going on? Okay, compared to China, like China, they're like, look, our population growth curve is our agricultural growth curve is linear, and this growth curve here is exponential. So we can't advance economically if we let that go on. So we need to slow down population growth, right? So we had this big thing even up until World War I, this ideology, Malthusian ideology, that poor people all have to die off anyway. It's sort of like apocalyptic or so. I don't it's just appalling to me that you have this civilization that's run like that, where they're like, kill all the poor people, right? And then everything's going to be okay. So we'll start crusades, right? Send people off. And this is an element, an underlying element in leadership when they're thinking about how to run things. There are numerous extant of papal writings of the Pope talking about we got too many people, so they should go kill all the people that that are not Catholic, right? For example, go out to the Middle East or whatever, kill everybody that's not Catholic, and that's going to reduce the population here in our city centers, right? It's going to be ultimately, right? That's exactly what they're doing, instead of looking at, hey, we need to tell people not to have so many children, right? Slow down with the kids and try to work on ways to increase our agricultural production. In fact, it was Fritz Haber, a very prominent Jew, a Polish Jew, brilliant chemist. He's considered the father of chemical warfare, and he was working in all these ways of like making insecticides and poison gases and stuff like that. And he's one of the guys that pioneered the use of fluorine and chlorine gas in trench warfare. But in the course of what he was doing, trying to accelerate the armaments production or whatever, he came up with a commercial production method for fertilizer, right? So he's trying his best to exterminate everybody, right? And he kind of stumbles across industrial fertilizer production and solves world hunger, because he wins the Nobel Prize for that, right? It was like with this new invention of commercial fertilizer, which incidentally ultimately is now a threat to civilization because it's thrown things out of balance or whatever. I know, but anyway, both Rosa Luxemburg and Trotsky said, if you guys do this, ultimately the Soviet Union, there's not going to be a Soviet Union. The Soviet Union is going to be isolated and cut off at every corner of the world, and anybody that tries to make reciprocal systems where people help each other, right, they're gonna be destroyed. And this is, it precipitated there's a great exodus from the Catholic Church, and people were like, the popes, a particular Francis, and a lot of the guys that were involved in Vatican II, they were like, the church has lost something because everybody's leaving, right? And there were, and so what they began to recover, what they began to recover is that idea of reciprocity and fighting poverty and working on eliminating poverty or whatever. And just as Trotsky and Luxemburg predicted, these guys are Catholics and they're operating in Jesuit groups across Latin America, and the United States is like, kill them wherever they are, massacre them. They were bringing all their death squads up here to Georgia and training them at the School of the Americas. They would go down in Guatemala. We got all this documentation of like when the paramilitaries would arrive in our village, and they would say, "Who's the catechist?" The Catholic guy that teaches people how to read and then teaches them about Vatican II and stuff. And then they would just take it, put a rope around his neck, and hang him right there in front of everybody, right? And this is, it's in American foreign policy. If you go to the Woodrow Wilson Foundation Political Economy of American Foreign Policy, that's what they say. It's like, this violates Ricardo's economic theory of comparative advantage. If they start to help each other and build up their own communities and move away from develop their economies and stuff like that, because it violates Ricardo, ultimately it will lead to world. That's the rationale. It's going to lead to impoverishment of the world through the rationale of comparative advantage, and so therefore we need to kill them all. But and it continues. It was but I was really impressed as I came across these new editions of this new edition of Rosa Luxemburg, and I had only read I read a biography of her life, and then I read a book by her, and it's been so long that I don't remember it very well, but it was like it's called The Accumulation of Capital, and there's like actually 14 volumes of material. She's an extremely prolific writer, just a very brilliant person, and yeah, killed by the precursors to the Nazis, the Freikorps. All right, so I wanted to say I deliberately I had this file, and I was like, I think this file is really infected with the virus, right? And so this morning I was like, yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and run this. It just fell into my hands. I was looking up doing my thing of alternatives, because I wanted to see what is the latest thing with photo repair and video repair and retouching and stuff like that with artificial intelligence. And there's of course people are like gangbusters. They're trying to upload the pirated version that's infested with some kind of Trojan or whatever like that. And I look at this file and I'm like, this has got to be just total Trojan. But you know what? I'm just going to go ahead and run it, because I need to have some insecurity if I can learn more about security. So right now, I have a clean Windows installation, completely reformatted my computer, and I had a couple of snags, but it went pretty well for me to be at this point by this time. I unfortunately, I had put, I have a thumb drive that's just got like a clean, well, what, this is what I want to say. If you got a Windows operating system, you can run an activator on it, right?
What is an activator?
An activator is just a thing that makes your Windows legit, right? So the way that because like if you run into the thing where you have an image, it's like an installer that somebody has configured to baseline, and this is what I have just put on. It's configured to baseline have some specific utilities and browsers already bundled, like a convenience thing. And I don't like that, But this morning I couldn't find the one that I had made myself. Now, what I would say that you need to do, right, is get an ISO, which is an image. And a lot of times ISOs, you can go on Archive or whatever and download the ISO with an activator, right? And then install. Well, what you do is you use Rufus, and Rufus is a little utility that creates a bootable USB drive. So you run Rufus. You point Rufus to the ISO image that you have of Windows that you want to install, and then and I'm just shaking my head because it's like I looked around and I thought to myself I should just get Rufus and get an ISO because I have them sitting, but then I didn't because I stumbled across another image that I had, so I put it on there. I'm just like, but that's good because it brings home for me the way I should be doing things to be more effective. No. In terms of what I've got here is I have you can well let me see. I'm trying to see what I'm delivering here. I'm trying to look.
Right now I'm just seeing a blank Windows screen.
Okay, so that as long as I'm talking, that should be up there. And I'm trying to see. Isn't don't I have my person? Yeah, she's in there. She's in there. Oh, I see. I don't have it set up where I can see what I need to see. Okay, so now I see it. All right. Now, if I go in my you see that? See in my OBS, I've got my displays set up, right? And you notice that they don't take up the whole screen. So they're both turned off. There's display, my primary display, and there's my secondary display. Now notice that they fit together really perfectly, right? Now what you do is you set up one display exactly like you want to have it, and then actually, let me do this. Yeah, so you can see it, right? I get this, and I I gotta think where I'm going. Okay, yeah, okay. So you see that red outline? It's sort of selected around that, right? I right click on that, and I go to transform, and I go copy transform. Copy transform. All right. So, and just for grins and giggles, I'm gonna go back to this, and I could go and transform and stretch to screen. Okay. So when I first add the display, I got 920 by 1080, and this is what I've got. right? But now what I can do is I right click on it and go to transform and hit paste transform. And let me turn my other thing back on like that. So yeah, I right clicked on it and then I go to transform and then I choose paste transform, and that makes them precisely where I want them to be. Now, also, an issue that we were having before, or that I was talking about before, is when I get these animated GIF files, really, I can, with the video card or whatever that I have, maybe I can run through 10, right? And if I in a slideshow, and because the GIFs are pretty damn big, right? So they can only take so much, right? So I take these Gamera files, but the thing about it is the Gamera GIF files, sometimes the movie is in 16:9, sometimes it's CinemaScope, right? Sometimes it's TV, it's 4/3, right? So this and what I was saying before. Hey, how you doing? All right. I know I got crazy echo going on, and I don't. Do you hear echo, Ken? Hope he's still there. Anyway, yeah. If you go, what I did with my Gamera files is anyone, at least most all of them that had borders, like black framing or something like that. If they had that, I trimmed that off with a crop, right? And I put them all in one folder, and I picked a 16:9 aspect ratio, and I just ran a batch process on them. So now I have 10 or 11 folders. Each one has 10 money shots from Gamera, like the special effects shots from Gamera movies or whatever like that. So I can have 10 different layouts that will show scenes from close to 20 different movies, just very, very over the top. All right. I thought I had lost you. I didn't.
Put some soap on your beard.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. That's very nice of you.
Yeah, I want to make your beard clean.
I appreciate it. It's very
Yeah,
nice
I
of you.
appreciate it too.
So let me see. What am I doing in way of time? Okay, so I need to get back on track here, and I don't know if he's having tech difficulty, but I'm sort of in a bad. I have a bad attitude, which I should not have. I don't know. I felt, well, I mean, I sing in a choir. Okay, here he comes. Hey, lost you.
You there, David?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I had to reboot my machine right when you went to your screen and everything. My machine froze up, so.
Oh, okay.
I need to, as I said, I probably need to do a fresh install and do everything over.
And it's good. And this is the thing. I have these laptop. I've got so many laptops over here, and one of the things that a big problem is that I had my daughter was left alone over here for, in the house for like 2 years. And like I said, so all she's doing is playing video games on the smartphone, playing on the computer, drawing on the walls and stuff. And my wife's solution is just take her computer away, disconnect her computer from the internet, put all these, my wife is like, I'm like, you gotta, it's a big disappointment. I mean, okay, I understand my wife has a health problem. She's exhausted most of the time. She's very tired or whatever like that. I didn't want to end up, my position, you know how I feel. It's like I want somebody to be full-time with our child, right? But she's hammered us down to a point where I've got to work. I've got to do stuff, right? To rebuild a business and everything like that, right? And Freya was in here. I got to a point where she was in here, and Mary was like, "No, that looks bad," or whatever. I'm gonna build this, big gaming thing. It's gonna look real good. And anyway, it never got it. She moved Freya into the other room, and she's got accustomed to staying over there. So she's like, just come over here and sit, which I would love to do, but I cannot. I've got to get my computer skills back together. Are you still there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah. And I'm trying to get things set up really cool in here again, and lure her back in here again. I got her over here a couple of times, but now she's acclimated to that. My wife can, really, really do harmful things. So one of my solutions, and this goes back into what I was, I'm ADD, right? But I know, hey, I didn't lose where I was going. Where I was going is this thing with reinstalling Windows, right? I need to reinstall Windows a lot, right? To be really skilled with the operating system and all the things that, you need to be doing that, over and over again.
Constantly,
things change and stuff like that. So, here, I've got most of my stuff is pretty much, set up. So what we started to do is I've been taking her to the new Gwinnett, library, and they have like a story time, and a lot of kids come, and it's actually a nice new library building that they built in Gwinnett. And she had like a complete blast, but she walks in there with her laptop and her bag and everything like that, and gets set up. She can play Roblox or whatever, and then she's like, oh, and this is the way, my wife is like, punish her, take her computer away from her, and be authoritarian and stuff like that. I'm like, all I can say is like, I watched my mom do that to us, and it didn't work. It doesn't work, right? What's going to happen is you're going to make her not like you, right? So you need to come up with ways to let her, if as soon as she feels like you're threatening the thing that she enjoys the most, you're losing her, right? Mm-hmm. And what you need to do is gradually coax her and put her in situations where there's something that absolutely is more engaging. So this library in Gwinnett was a real good thing, and I'm planning. We go over there, and it's a lot of kids are over there, and there's a lot of activities for kids, and they
and that's good for social interaction with other kids.
Yeah. And
really,
it got her off of the computer. I'm like, okay, we'll go and you'll have your computer with you. So, I'm not threatening to take away your Roblox. Right? I'm not threatening to cut off your computer from you.
Yeah, it's there if you want it, but here are some other alternatives. Isn't this cool over here?
Right. And what my wife doesn't understand, I'm trying to help her, right? I'm much older than her. If I die or something like that, and she goes on that thing, and I see other parents that are like, they get into this authoritarian thing, their social pressure. They think that that's the way that they should do it or is expected of them. And their kids are just looking for a chance to get away from them and never see them again. Yeah. And it's a big mistake. And I, I don't know everything, but I know damn well that if you have a really hard problem, like how to teach a bunch of kids from the ghetto or something like that, you've got a situation where what do you have? You have a whole lot of people that are not interested in you or what you have to say, right?
Right.
And you have to come up with some, and of course the school's going to give you all this. Oh, you have to do all this. You have to do all these pedagogical methodologies of the latest. All the master's students have written these new things, and the most successful ones we have to employ in the classroom and stuff like that. And I have very little option. I hope I don't say this too much, but I have very little option of how I was teaching my classes. But I got the top growth scores in the entire school. Right?
Well, it's, you know,
You got to.
Elliot Wigington, even though he was a pedophile,
Yeah.
I mean, he hit along the right thing. It's like you got to make it fun.
Right.
In other words, quit making it, this regimented, so much of what it was like a dictation of notes. And, if you couldn't spell and all this other stuff, it was futile, which is what my issue was.
Call
But
your
I remember,
mom. You're gonna get a
I,
beating.
I remember having a math teacher, Miss Yates, and she was young, right out of college. And, she came in and, basically, on Monday you start a new principal or whatever. And on Friday you have a test. Well, she had the attitude that if a certain percentage of the class failed, that it wasn't the students being lazy. It was like she hadn't done her job. She would go over it again and go, well, let's figure out, what it was. And I mean, I loved math, because the
You're in
thing
it
with,
together. You're in it together.
well, there's only one way to do it, basically. In other words, in an English class, there's so many exceptions to, there are all these rules, but there's always an exception to the rule. And, it was more about, how your teacher felt about you personally than your skills is what I saw.
Yeah.
Because I saw when I was in college, I would write one thing and use it in one class and get like a C. A cute girl would borrow it and turn it into her class, and she'd get a friggin' A. And I'm going, hey, wait a minute,
Yeah. Yeah. That's
and
yeah.
and so
Scott Owen at Georgia State University. He was he was like with the female students or whatever. Yeah. Doing that stuff.
it's like with me, I had when I first went to Georgia State, I remember having like the first math class, and they had like a graduate assistant teaching the class. And I remember him saying to someone, I mean, I was outside his door listening. And he said, well, I'm going to walk into class tonight and say such and such and such and such. And, totally, I mean, it was basically verbal diarrhea, but it was like none of us would understand it, But in other words, he was wearing his math knowledge on his sleeve. And I mean, I was failing math, which was in high school, like my best subject. I mean, in my senior year, I was taking trigonometry and geometry and chemistry all at the same time. And I friggin' enjoyed it because I go, oh yeah, in other words, it wasn't all this abstract English crap that whatever. But anyway, the long and short of the story is, you need to make anything that you teach a child engaging. And if they have, whether they're visual learners or tactile learners, auditory learners, you need to learn how to engage all of them and to make it interesting. And then also care enough about the student to say, as I've seen you do, it's like, okay, I know you can do this. What's the problem? How can I help you?
Right.
And, but anyway, um,
Yeah,
hmm.
I know.
So
Let's
was,
see.
was yesterday Yom Kippur?
Yeah, yeah, and that's one of the reasons why I'm kind of. I mean, it's good and everything, but um, I haven't. That's a lot of to be in the choir. That's a lot of Hebrew, many hours of singing,
Hmm.
and Kol Nidre, the song. It's hard. It's a. Not only is it Hebrew, but musically, yeah, it's the one we did is in the. I don't know if you remember a movie called The Jazz Singer.
The jazz singer, yeah.
Yeah, that's that's in the end. When his father dies or whatever, and it's like Yom Kippur, and he he's in the synagogue, and they live in a close community, right? So you open the window and you can hear uh, um, Al Jolson singing Kol Nidre. His father is like, I have my son again, and then he's like, now I can die in peace, and he drops dead or whatever. It's a tearjerker. It really is.
Hmm.
I shouldn't laugh at. It's like that Hollywood sort of theatrics or whatever like that. It's like a little bit overdone, but that's for that. This is a thing I have been thinking about is trying to go
15-minute warning.
go and do like a get into um, undergrad in music, um, which once I God Almighty, these guys are hammering me into the ground here. It's a disaster, absolute disaster,
Hmm.
and not able to. And I called Zenny on the phone. I talked to her for a long time, and I know my wife. My wife was like at first was like. Really did a lot of harmful things to the godparents. She's like wanting to drive them out, I'm like, dear, if you had lifted a finger to help us get the business off the ground, maybe work with my sister or done, and, she wouldn't do any of the training to work my, she got over here. I told her exactly what I was going to do. The generate a revenue stream with a bookstore. Want to do. Like the urban farming guys. I hate to talk about the whole, you talk to people, you don't know if they're listening or whatever. Like you talk to people for a long time and they're like, what are you doing again? Maybe they didn't hear a damn word you said. So the urban farming guys was like my big model. This is what I wanted. I've always dreamed of something like that, of rebuilding a neighborhood or whatever, the way Inman Park was rebuilt by people who had a positive vision or whatever, rebuilding Atlanta neighborhoods and stuff like that. And I get right when we got here, okay, here's a guy. It's like, look, I got 1,000 square foot of space under the Harts building, whatever. We can turn that into an office, and you can build up your business out of there, and we'll. What he said is like, we'll renovate it piecemeal. You go down there and handle the renovation or whatever, and as we do it, each part of the job or whatever, I'll just pay, right? And then you'll be able to just use the space, right? As long as you want. I mean, that's like you know, I'm like, what kind of idiots can't start a business in a shopping district like Little Five Points?
Exactly.
With somebody offering 1,000 square feet for free, right?
Exactly.
And you know, and she wouldn't do the, you know, I was like, Ella's gonna look. This will be the office center for little5points.com, right? And we'll be working from there, because you know, when you're doing the website or whatever, you need to go around the neighborhood, that when changes happen and stuff like that, you gotta make a blog and everything like that. She wouldn't do anything, you know. No, I'm not gonna. Well, dear. Okay. Well, I mean, that is what I got for her after. You know, she sort of made it clear she wasn't gonna, you know, learn how to make business cards or T-shirts. And I was like, Donna's got, you know, she's got a clientele where she's connected with events and stuff like that. If you can show her that you can follow instructions, and I can show you how to do all this stuff, but I'm trying to do some. I'm trying to learn how to grow plants, right? I'm serious about this. And so she wouldn't do that. That became clear. I got her the job with Eldo. I had to do all the work. So not only was I down there, and then the contractor people that we got. Well, first we got Davis down there, and Davis was descending into alcoholism, and just not, you know, he never was, you know, a real professional contractor, you know, never licensed or anything like that. And he did some good work, and I never thought it was constructive to treat him like he's sick, right?
Right.
And you know, I the thing about it is the way that he works is in a self-destructive manner.
Right.
So he hammers himself harder and harder, and usually he can't finish a job. He can't finish it because he's beating himself up too much, right? And it is sort of a, it's I shouldn't have, but you know, at least he was there. He did help a lot, and Eldo still, when he goes down there, he's like, it's amazing what we did with that space, right? Because it had the accumulated, it had just garbage, you know, and everything that was put down there got destroyed, and it for storage or whatever like that. And it's like at a point now where if the bricks were sealed or whatever, and you put the concrete down on the floor, you know, you could really start doing something with it again. But you know, like I don't have time anymore. I need to stay here.
Right.
My wife is not, you know, she's just like, throw her in a daycare center or whatever like that. That's not my problem. You know, I'm like, Mom.
Well, yeah, as you said, she wants to sit at her desk, buy a phone, and get paid so much an hour, and she can spend the majority of her time looking at TikTok videos.
Yeah.
And you know, I was having this discussion with someone the other day. I said, you know, it's amazing to me that, you know, that I've literally worked. I mean, when I was working for OFS, I mean, I had a side business to buy the equipment I needed to do my job there, and I was always exhausted. And then you have, you know, the managers that are walking around making decisions. And I mean, the last like director of the department that I was in, I mean, his answer to everything was basically, oh, well, we don't supply those services anymore. And I'm going, you know, I've had these customers for like, you know, 15 years that have come to me to do this stuff, and you're telling me that my response should be we don't offer those services anymore? And yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's crazy, but
Yeah.
But Lord, thank you for my many blessings.
Well, I always thought that was like a Potemkin village, you know, that when they when they let 3,000 when it was no longer Lucent and it became Furukawa.
Right.
I was like, that, it was just divide and conquer. You're going to fire 3,000 people and blame it on the union organizing, and just keep a skeleton thing, and just work people to death, right? Oh, you better work harder because the Chinese, are going to move all the jobs to China, so you need to work.
Well, it was
harder.
Japanese, but the
No,
long
they,
industry.
they move that stuff to China. I guarantee it. They don't want to make fiber in Japan. They're capitalists.
Right. Well, the big thing is what I saw at the very end. It was all about executive bonuses.
Yeah, fire people
it's like the CFO.
Take the money that you're not paying to the people that you fired.
Right.
But yeah, that was after the Russian Revolution. That it was Luxembourg and Trotsky who said we got to seize the moment for international change. Where when our awareness worldwide of the situation of the working class worldwide is such that there's a people are on the same wavelength, right? And if we don't take advantage of that, and it goes, the imperial process starts again, they're going to be making money like gangbusters, right? The people that make the tanks and the bombs and everything like that, because it's a way of doing it, right?
Right.
Kill off, you got all these workers or whatever, and they're clamoring for wages. Well, work them to death, kill them in the trenches or whatever. And then when everybody's dead and everything's destroyed, all the people that have concrete companies and brick making companies and iron companies or whatever will be a bonanza. They'll be able to rebuild and everything like that. And it's like the Marshall Plan or whatever. It's like the American people. First, America goes and drops all these bombs and destroys everything, and then we have this Marshall Plan to rebuild, right? And then before you know it, we're back in there bombing again. It's like, oh, we're gonna rebuild, right? At taxpayer expense. It's a way of doing things, but it's damn sure stupid, and it's not gonna.
Well, and I want to say it was the last Batman movie, may have been called Gotham or whatever, but I mean, what I thought was interesting at the very end of the movie, in it there was the Joker, came, was the arch nemesis in this, and there was always or Riddler. Well, maybe the Riddler is anyway, but the long and short of it, it was like there was all these riddles. And at the very end, they basically were saying, well, the root of all this evil was when the Wayne Foundation gave this like $1 billion endowment, to help the city. And, so there was all this funding for all these little projects, to help education and to help the homeless. Well, all the power and money were going to the contractors. In other words, it's like, oh, we've got all this money here, and, we're controlling the politicians because they're the ones that award the contracts. And, so, Batman, who's sitting there, looking at, the legacy of his father, and basically he's being told, well, all this crime and all this stuff going on in the city is your dad's fault, because he basically, he set up this $1 billion foundation, to help. Well, the people in charge, they, in other words, that money became power, and who they gave the money to, was all the political corruption and all that other stuff. So, yeah, I mean, to me, it's like I was going, yeah, this is a underlying theme to so many things, is at the end of the day, I remember Mom and Aunt Joyce saying that, anytime they say, oh, it's for the children, they were saying, oh, it's for the adults that are running the programs for the children, because I know Aunt Joyce, they had something like a Head Start program down there in Iron City or whatever. And, the government had set like $250,000 aside for it and everything. And, they had rented a building and, hired an executive that had to be in charge. But at the end, Aunt Joyce was the teacher. And they basically had class for a month. And then they shut it all down because all the money was gone. So the kids didn't get it. Where all the money was spent was hiring some director that, as you're saying, with some PhD and something, was getting paid, probably half the money at least was given to them as a salary. And then, the money filtered down from there. So at the very end, out of that $250,000, the kids got like 30 days, less than 30 days of class time. And the whole program shut down. So anyway. And we're going to be cut off in about 2 minutes. The machine I was having trouble with, I literally took everything off the mother. I mean, I didn't take the CPU off, but I took all the memory out. I took all the video cards out, and put one video card. And I realized I'd have at least one stick of memory in there, but it still won't do the last Windows update. And I'm wondering, because I had like a RAID hooked up to it, if that's in the BIOS and that's causing a problem or whatever. But at this point, I've kind of put that on a back burner. And I may need to get that machine up. The RAID that I had, it's not a over like Cat5 over an Ethernet thing. It's some kind of connection, and I need to go and get all the stuff off of that RAID. But we're about to end. I'll see you tomorrow.
You don't need a RAID anymore, man. Get rid of it.
Right.
Get rid of it.
Get rid of it. Yeah, I just need to get the stuff off of it that's there.
Yeah.
So I was using it as storage. So.
All right. Well, I'm gonna. Okay, we'll talk later. All right. Let me see where I am time-wise. That was interesting. Another hour. Yeah. See, this is what happens when the ADHD people run things. So I'm in charge now. So get ready. I'm gonna come back on in a little while, and do some more stuff, and hopefully next time we'll get more stuff done. But I think that was really, we covered a lot of important social studies stuff. So I'm glad of that, and I hope to see you again soon.